Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I have a brand new series for you going over my favorite colors of nail polish starting with red. So I'm really excited about this series. I'll save more of my thoughts at the end, but for now, let's get into the swatches. We're starting with a couple of cream shades and obviously have to start off with the iconic OPI Big Apple Red. So this one I feel like is such a staple that I'm sure most people have in their collections, but it's just that classic go-to red kind of shade. It's described as a luscious red that speaks to confidence, and honestly, I feel like that definition can carry pretty well for all the other reds in this video because generally red just makes me feel so much more confident and powerful and sexy and just words that I don't normally ascribe to myself. So we love that. And here's two coats. The next red I have is the classic Louboutin Rouge, and this was a birthday gift a long time ago. I did not spend $50 on nail polish because my budget is not built that way, but if it was, then I probably would have another bottle or two because I just adore how aesthetic and luxurious these bottles are, which I know is kind of silly because ultimately the formula is nothing to write home about. The skinny brush isn't that great, and I know that you can also dupe this for a fraction of the price, but ultimately it's a shade I have in my collection and I just love the way that I feel after I use it. It's just something so special and I save it for special occasions, so I just had to include this one. So starting to get into some slightly deeper reds, the first one I have is China Glaze's Modern Auburn, and this came out in a fall collection a couple of years ago, but it is just still one of my absolute favorite shades. This one is described as a deep cinnamon red cream with subtle brown undertones, and I am just such a fan of this specific shade of red. I feel like there's kind of a brick color quality to it, but like obviously a very dark kind of shade. And this one has such a luscious, creamy formula. I think it's just so flattering, very vampy, but not too dark. It's still noticeably red. Next up, I have Ave Currant, and this one is described as a burgundy wine cream. So here's a quick side-by-side with Modern Auburn because I feel like they looked so similar at first, but there is a noticeable difference where Currant is definitely more of a almost plummy kind of red-leaning shade because, again, of that wine influence. And I am just such a sucker for these like super deep, almost berry leaning type of reds. And this is another one that just has a flawless formula. I say this a lot about Olive Ave in general, but just these deeper shades just do something to me. And I absolutely loved swatching this one again, even though it's very out of season for me, but it just makes me so excited for fall. Next up, we have Zoya Suzie, and this can be described as a dark cherry red cream. So this one came out in the Rose palette a couple of years ago, which I absolutely loved in general because it was this palette of pinks and reds that were all very like berry toned, and I just absolutely love them. I am such a sucker for these deep, rich, berry red kind of shades, especially in the fall. I don't know if you noticed, but I tend to lean more towards these darker reds as opposed to the bright cherry reds in the summer. So yeah, this is another one that is such a staple for me. It is just so good. And going one step darker, we have Cirque Colors Empire State of Mind, which is described as a vampy oxblood red cream. So obviously, as I mentioned, and as you already put together. I love these deeper red shades, and I feel like an oxblood that's this deep is definitely a staple in my collection that should be in everybody's collections, whether it's this shade or, you know, something similar like Essie's Wicked, which I was considering, but I feel like that one is almost too dark, if that makes sense. This one still feels very red to me despite how dark it looks, and I just love that. I have this affinity for these deep reds, especially in the fall, and I just can't recommend them enough. It's just so badass and sexy at the same time, and I love it. And now moving on to specialty finishes, I have Cirque Colors Lucky Jelly, which is basically just a bright red jelly polish. So I didn't film the first coat by accident, so here I'm applying the second coat, and you can see it does give me really nice even coverage, but is still super translucent and juicy looking. And as you are probably familiar with me and my channel, I love jelly nails, especially as the weather gets warmer. And I'm just so happy that Cirque finally released a red one because it'll complete the rainbow of jellies that I already have from them. So yeah, here it is on 3 coats, looking so lush. Next, I chose ILNP's Poppy, which came out in their Splash collection last year, which, as you probably know, was my favorite collection of the summer. But this one is a vivacious poppy red with glowing red sparkle and a holographic microflake. And I just love the juicy finish of this shade. As you can see on just 1 coat, I get really even coverage. So I feel like it looks like a jelly sandwich already. And it's just so perfect to me. I just adore these juicy kinds of finishes, especially for the summer. So whether you're a fan of red or not, I would suggest just checking out this collection because it's one of my favorites. The next shade I chose is Cirque Colors Fire Opal, which sadly is discontinued, but I really hope that Cirque would bring it back sometime because this was a part of their Facets line, which features other shades like Amethyst and Emerald and all these other amazing, beautiful shades. And I don't know why they would get rid of a red like this, but it is just another jelly red with a holographic microflake in it, but this one's obviously a lot darker, a little bit more buildable as well, and I feel like the flakes are a little bit bigger in this shade, so I feel like the holographic sparkle is a little bit more noticeable. But either way, this is just such a stunning shade, and please, Cirque, bring it back. Next up, I have Holo Taco's Favorite Sister, and this one is not available right now, but it is a seasonal shade, so it should be back later in the year. But this is their red frosted metal, and it just blew me away when I first applied it. To be fair, I hadn't tried the frosted metal formula before, and so I always have heard the whole thing of you just have to see it for yourself in person. The photos don't do it justice, and I can totally vouch for that. I feel like even with video, trying to show the movement and how much it twinkles in the light, it just does not do it justice to how shiny and almost blingy it is in real life. The flakes just catch the light so beautifully, and this is definitely one of my favorite shades, especially for the holidays. Next up, I have ILNP's Be Mine, which came out recently as a part of their Valentine's Day trio, but we have a raspberry red base for this one. So again, that berry kind of red shade is coming back. And this one has a really pretty pink to gold magnetic shimmer, and there's also these pink metallic flecks that are outside of the magnetic shimmer, which is just something I love about ILNP's magnetics in general. There's just so much depth to them, and I just really love this specific shade. It's just so juicy and bright, but also kind of dark. At the same time, it's really the shimmer and the flakies that brighten it up, but I just think it's so yummy. I love it so, so much. Next up, I have this oldie in my collection. This is Wildflower Lacquer's Cherry Smasher, which came out in a PPU in like 2020 or something. And I'm honestly not sure if mine has changed color over time, because I was honestly kind of surprised at how orange leaning it was here on the first coat. But I do build this up in 3 coats and it does get a little bit darker, but I feel like it lost a little bit of that dark cherry red kind of base color, and it's just a lot more orange. But either way, I absolutely love the deep cherry red jelly kind of effect, and especially being filled with these gold flakies that end up looking very like multi-dimensional. I feel like they do kind of shift to green or orange depending on the lighting, and there's also that finer holographic sparkle running throughout, so I feel like there's just so much depth, especially once it's layered in 3 coats. Next, I have another ILNP shade, and this one is Ruby, which came out in their New Year's Eve collection last year. So I remember putting this on and just immediately falling in love, and I was so surprised because I really didn't think I was gonna love it as much as I did, but it just quickly became one of those shades that I knew I was gonna love every holiday moving forward. It's gonna be like my holiday red. So this one builds up so beautifully in 2 coats. It's just so rich and has a lot of depth and dimension to it with all of those little shimmers. It's just absolutely stunning. I love this shade so, so much. And last but certainly not least, we have Candy Paint's A Velvet Room, which honestly I feel like is a little bit of a cheat because this one technically has a very blackened jelly base, but it's just packed with that red shimmer running throughout. So I feel like once it's built up on 2 coats, it gives it more of an oxblood kind of red leaning color. But I don't know, I guess maybe you'll have to let me know if I'm allowed to count this one in, but I consider it more of a red shade than a black shade, if that makes sense. So yeah, this one is absolutely stunning. Another favorite of mine for the fall. You might have remembered this from my Scorpio favorites video, so if you are a Scorpio or you're just someone who loves moody, vampy shades, you need this color. So that wraps up my favorite red nail polishes. So I definitely can't wait to hear what you all think about this new series, as well as my picks for this color. Definitely let me know if we have any favorites in common, or just what are some of your favorites that you think are must-have reds that are just like staples in your collection, because I really thought this video was gonna be easy, like at least starting with reds, because I thought I didn't have that many. And then once I started going through my drawers to pick out my favorites, I realized how many I had, and I knew I was gonna be in trouble because I am a Libra and I just am so indecisive, and it's so hard for me to pick favorites and narrow things down. So hopefully you'll stick with me as I figure it out with the other colors. I think the next one shouldn't be too bad because we are going in rainbow order, since I do love rainbow anything, including playlists. So I think orange shouldn't be that bad, but I'm a little nervous for other colors that I really, really like, you know, blue or pink or whatever. But yeah, let me know any and all thoughts that you have down below in the comments so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.